back to Cyberspace Investigations, more like Cyberpunk Investigations today. That's right, we're covering CD Projekt Red and the entire Cyberpunk 2077 disaster story. Boy, this has been a roller coaster that I was completely uninterested in, but we're here to talk about it since it is basically fully completed. So let's start from the top. We got CD Projekt Red, renowned game developer and creator of The Witcher 3, and definitely no other games that aren't very good. And they're coming out with a new game. It's been in development since 2013, since the 7th generation of consoles. Yeah, that's right. This game has been in development for over a generation now. And the hype levels just continued and continued to rise every single year for that entire runtime. As The Witcher 3 was re-released, the hype would increase, and it's just like, oh, CD Projekt Red's so good, and they're just gonna make one of the best games ever. It's gonna change gaming forever, and that's the mindset that everybody got into. And then the game was delayed like 15 times, and every time, more and more death threats were sent to the developers. Now, I don't just mean death threats like the normal kind, I mean really sweaty PC gamer death threats. I mean, usually those are the only kind of death threats that get sent from PC gamers, I mean, but when you get really deep into the Steam fan base and you get people who live by The Witcher 3 like The Witcher 3 is their Bible, then you get these people who just, in a fit of rage, send death threats. And of course, these death threats never mean anything. Like, have you ever seen the people who send these death threats? They've got like a quadruple chin, okay? There is no way they're ever going to kill somebody. So, either way, this kept happening, and there was pressure from the fans, pressure from investors to get the game out. They needed money. Not like they really needed money. I mean, CD Projekt Red is government funded. It's not like they actually need to do this, but whatever, they still needed to. I mean, they're a business, so what are you gonna do? And at this point, because of the corpo cyberpunk message of Cyberpunk 2077, there was this whole thing that CD Projekt Red was the messiah of gaming long before Microsoft was ever seeming to be considered that, which they really aren't anymore. That was more of a thing before the next-gen console launches, but CD Projekt Red was also considered that because of their anti-corporate message, despite being a very large corporation themselves. Now, most people seem to like to think about CD Projekt Red as an indie developer, but let me just tell you, they have more value than Ubisoft. When you have more value than Ubisoft, you can't be an indie developer anymore. It's just not a thing you can do. Not many things have more value than Ubisoft in the gaming industry. So, what is going to be the next move for them? I mean, they've got death threats coming in left and right, pressure from all angles. What do you think's gonna happen? Well, they're gonna release the game no matter what state it's in. I mean, it's understandable. Games come out rushed all the time. What do you expect? It's the gaming industry. And of course there was crunch, but people seem to want to deny the crunch because their favorite messiah game developer was behind the crunch this time, and they couldn't believe that their favorite little CDPR was doing normal video game industry things. Now, of course, to anybody not indoctrinated into their very strange ecosystem and marketing tangent, it all seemed normal. I mean, anybody else, you could see right through it, or see right through what they were doing, see right through everything they said as just marketing crap. But then we get to the actual launch of the game, December. It was delayed one single last time to December 2020, and then it finally came out. And before the launch, the devs said the game ran surprisingly well on 8th gen consoles and ran even better on PC, and you know, it seemed alright. But then there was also the fact that they weren't letting anybody use their own footage. Well, that's a little odd. I mean, the only time in recent memory companies have done that was when Sony wouldn't let anybody use their gameplay for Last of Us Part 2 to avoid spoilers, which was kind of a dumb thing in and of itself, but that's not what we're here to talk about. And So we have that, and then we have the fact that people even talking about the game were getting striked so hard by CDPR that they might actually have lost their channels. The Dreamcast guy was one of these channels. And then we actually get to launch, and we understand why such a strict, harsh embargo was in place that whole time. The console versions of the game were complete and utter garbage. They were false advertising, they never showed the games, they barely showed any gameplay, and the gameplay they did show was running on high-end PCs, and most of the game they did show was of the first 5 or 10 hours, which I've been told is pretty much just a prologue. 5 to 10 hour prologue, and some people have said the campaign of this game is somewhere in the range of 12 hours, so holy crap. The overstatements the devs said really hit people hard, especially on console. And of course you had their die-hard fans saying, oh, it's not that bad. The game runs fine on PC. But every game runs fine on PC. Ark runs fine on PC. Have you seen how Ark Survival Evolved runs on PS4 and Xbox One? It is one of the worst performing, worst optimized games of all time. And then it runs fine on PS5 and Xbox Series X. There is no excuse, is what I'm trying to say. There is no excuse for this. But that doesn't even get to the worst of it, because after that, they get lawsuits. The lawsuits start coming in because people are trying to refund the game. And so there's rumors of lawsuits at first. And then we get to the point where CDPR does one of the worst moves in probably their entire history, and they released a post that basically said, Sony will give you refunds, I don't know, go to Sony, they'll do it. And Sony, looking over at them, just said, you gotta be kidding me. And so basically, because of that, because this could have probably started an entire, shifted the gaming landscape the whole time, Sony basically said, no you, and removed the game from the store, the PlayStation Store. And that's still where we are today. Now they say it's because of quality, and it's probably because of quality, and the game was also crashing every 10 minutes and also on PS5, which is concerning. And so Sony took it down, and it was basically saying you can't just tell us to give refunds. But then Sony did give refunds, and then they took it off the store and everything, so they said, we'll do it, but you're gonna pay the price. And so after that whole fiasco, CDPR's stock, boop, all the way down to 40% less than it had been in years, especially right before the launch of Cyberpunk, where it was really, really high. And after that, the lawsuits really start coming. They actually start making the lawsuits, and it just, everything escalates, and we're still dealing not we, I mean, we're just the gamers, we're watching this with a bag full of popcorn. The investors and the law firms and CDPR, they're all dealing with this right now. But then to top it all off, they also, on GOG, their basically counterpart to Steam, decided to pull an indie game because it had references to the president of China, which the Chinese didn't like that very much, so they ordered them to take the game off. And when I say ordered, that's probably not exactly what happened. They probably more asked nicely. But then, because everybody in the gaming industry, and pretty much every company in general, kind of worships the Chinese because there's so much money over there, that they took the game off. And it didn't get as much notice as it probably should have, especially from a company so pro-gamer as, and I really hate using that phrase because it just, the pro-gamer moniker really reeks of an late 2000s, early 2010s PC gaming landscape, which is just the ickiest time period to me for gaming. It was very, very toxic, I think. But then it just, the whole thing just has stagnated. Lawsuits are still happening. Cyberpunk made its money, recouped the development costs, which is kind of crazy given how many people refunded the game. And that's where we are today. Yeah, the Cyberpunk fiasco of 2020 to 2021. I'm sure the game in a few months will be acceptable enough to put back on the PlayStation Store. Note, I didn't say good, because that is still very much a problem of if the game is actually good, because that's something not many people have actually been discussing. Now, I didn't buy the game. I was never gonna buy it at launch. At first, I did have slight interest in getting it later down the line when it got cheaper, but after this whole fiasco, I don't want to support CDPR. I don't want to give them a dime for what they have done. That was disingenuous, hurtful to content creators, streamers, the general public, and even to a lesser extent, Sony, Microsoft, and anywhere else the game was put up at launch. But yeah, I guess that's about it for this one. So, I'll see you guys next week for another great program.